The prideful hunter Zekara's obsidian claws clicked against her pulse rifle as she studied her human partner across the briefing chamber. The facility's humid air carried the scent of exotic jungle flora through the ventilation systems, a constant reminder that they were far from any civilized world. Her golden eyes, evolved for hunting in the perpetual twilight of her homeworld, analyzed every detail of the creature called Marcus Webb. "So you're the famous human," she purred, her voice carrying the melodic undertones that made her species such effective predators. "I've heard stories about your people's participation in the war games." Marcus said nothing, his weathered face impassive as he checked his equipment with methodical precision. Gray streaked his dark hair at the temples and deep lines around. His eyes spoke of someone who'd seen too much. Zakara found his silence amusing rather than concerning. "The simulations say humans are decent fighters," she continued, circling him slowly. Her 7-foot frame moved with liquid grace, each step calculated to demonstrate her superiority. "But between us, I think the programmers were being generous." The Kethvar warrior had reason for confidence. Her species had dominated their stellar region for 3 millennia, their natural advantages making them nearly unstoppable in combat. Enhanced reflexes, armor-like skin, and predatory instincts honed over millions of years of evolution. She'd graduated top of her class at the War Academy, earning the right to participate in these prestigious interspecies training exercises. "Training Scenario 7 begins in 30 minutes, announced the facility's AI. "Partners Sikara Val Keth and Marcus Webb report to Arena Complex Delta." Zakara's mandibles clicked in anticipation. Arena Complex Delta was known for its elaborate jungle warfare scenarios, complete with hostile environmental conditions and sophisticated enemy AI. Perfect for showcasing her skills while her human partner, well, hopefully he wouldn't get in her way too much. "Try to keep up, Primitive," she said, shouldering her rifle with theatrical flair. "I'd hate for you to miss the show." Marcus finally looked at her directly, his brown eyes meeting her golden ones. For a moment, something flickered in their depth, something cold and distant that made her predatory instincts twitch unexpectedly. But then he simply nodded once and turned toward the exit. Zakara shook off the momentary unease. These humans were known for their odd expressions and unpredictable emotions. Probably just stage fright before facing a real warrior in action. As they walked through the facility's corridors toward the arena complex, she began planning her performance. She'd make it look effortless, perhaps even protect her human partner a few times to demonstrate Kethvar superiority. The other alien cadets would be watching, and this was her chance to prove why her species deserved respect. After all, it was just a game. Games and revelations. The arena materialized around them in a shimmer of hard light projections and atmospheric processors. Dense jungle foliage sprouted from the deck plates, creating a maze of twisted vines and towering ferns. The air grew thick and oppressive, filled with the sounds of alien insects and distant predator calls. Zakara inhaled deeply, her enhanced senses cataloging dozens of scent trails and potential ambush points. "Magnificent," she breathed, watching. Her skin automatically shift to adaptive camouflage patterns. "Almost like home." Marcus crouched beside a fallen log, his movements efficient but unremarkable. He pulled out a small device and began scanning their surroundings, his face impassive as data scrolled across the display. 15 minutes until enemy contact, Zakara announced, consulting her tactical display. "Standard search and destroy protocol. Try not to shoot me by accident, human." She bounded up a nearby tree with feline grace, her claws finding purchase in the synthetic bark. From her elevated position, she could see the entire arena layout: choke points, defensive positions, likely enemy approach routes. Child's play. For someone with her training. Below, Marcus had somehow vanished. Zakara blinked, focusing her enhanced vision on the spot where he'd been kneeling. Nothing. No heat signature, no movement, no sound. Even his scent trail seemed to have stopped. "Marcus?" She called softly into her comm unit. "Here." His voice came from directly below her, though she couldn't see him. "Where?" "I lost visual." "Good." Zakara's mandibles clicked in irritation. "This isn't hide and seek, primitive. We need to coordinate our—" The first enemy drone swept through the clearing below, its sensors sweeping back and forth. Zakara tensed, ready to strike, when the machine simply stopped, its optical array. Flickered once, then went dark. The drone crashed to the jungle floor with a metallic thud. "How did you?" Zakara began. Quiet. Marcus's voice carried a tone she hadn't heard before. Not harsh, but absolute. The kind of voice that expected immediate obedience. 3 more drones entered the clearing in formation, their weapon systems powered and scanning. Zakara watched in fascination as they began to malfunction one by one. No visible weapons fire, no energy signatures. They simply died. "Show off," she muttered, dropping silently to the ground. Her landing was perfectly silent, a testament to her species' natural stealth abilities. Marcus materialized beside her so suddenly that her combat reflexes almost triggered. Almost. He held up one finger for silence, then pointed toward a distant ridge. Zakara's enhanced hearing picked up the sound moments later heavy footsteps, too regular to be organic. Battle mechs. At least 6 of them, approaching from multiple vectors in a coordinated assault pattern. "Now we're talking," she whispered, excitement building in her chest. "Time for some real action." Marcus turned to look at her, and again she saw that cold something in his eyes. "This is still just training to you, isn't it? What else would it be?" Zakara checked her weapon's charge level, then began applying war paint in ritual patterns across her face. The best kind of training against worthy opponents. Right. Marcus's voice was flat, emotionless. Training. The first mech crested. The ridge, its massive frame silhouetted against the arena's artificial sky. Zakara felt her blood sing with anticipation. Finally, a chance to show this human what real warriors could do. When safety protocols failed, the explosion shook the entire facility. Zakara was mid-leap, sailing toward the first battle mech with claws extended, when the arena's hard light projections flickered and died. Real jungle foliage burst through failing deck plates as the facility's structural integrity compromised. Emergency klaxons wailed through corridors that suddenly reeked of smoke and burning electronics. She landed hard on actual dirt, her enhanced reflexes barely saving her from a twisted ankle. The battle mech, which should have been a holographic simulation, continued, its approach with very real weapons charging to full power. "What's happening?" She gasped into her comm unit. Marcus's response came from impossibly close behind her. "Someone sabotaged the safety systems. Those are live weapons now." A pulse blast scorched the ground where she'd been standing. Zakara rolled aside, her mind struggling to process the situation. This was supposed to be training. Safe, controlled, predictable training. "The facility's under attack," Marcus continued, his voice carrying that same flat calm. "Separatist forces. They've been planning this for months, turn the war games into a real battlefield." Another mech emerged from the tree line, its targeting systems painting laser dots across Zakara's chest. She dove behind a boulder, her heart racing as the stone exploded in a shower of fragments. "How do you know all this?" she demanded. "Because I've been hunting them." Zakara's blood went cold. "What?" "Lieutenant Marcus Webb, Terran Special Operations. I've been tracking this cell across 3 systems." His voice came from everywhere and nowhere, as if the jungle itself was speaking. "The training exercise was bait. A human scream echoed from the facility's main corridor, followed by weapons fire. Other cadets, aliens, who thought they were playing war games, were dying. "This isn't possible," Zakara whispered. "The safety protocols were compromised 6 hours ago, along with communications, emergency systems, and orbital support." Marcus appeared beside her boulder like a ghost made flesh, but now she could see him properly for the first time. His weathered face wasn't marked by age. It was marked by scars. Tiny ones, precise ones, the kind left by shrapnel and energy. Weapons. His hands moved with mechanical precision as he checked his very real weapon, not the training simulator she'd assumed. And his eyes, his eyes, were those of someone who'd done this before. Many times. "You're not a trainee," she breathed. "No." The nearest mech detected their position and began advancing, its heavy weapons spinning up to firing speed. Zakara's training kicked in, but her movements felt sluggish and imprecise. This wasn't a game anymore. These weapons could actually kill her. Marcus stepped out from behind the boulder and into the open. "What are you doing?" Zakara hissed. He didn't answer. Instead, he raised his rifle, a weapon she now realized was military grade, not training equipment, and fired 3 shots in rapid succession. The first punched through the mech's optical array. The second found a joint in its armor plating. The third hit something that made the entire machine convulse and topple backward. The silence that followed was deafening. "Stay close, Marcus," said, already moving toward the facility. "And do exactly what I tell you when I tell you." For the first time in her life, Zakara found herself following instead of leading. A prideful hunter had become prey, and the human she'd dismissed as primitive was now her only hope of survival. The game was over. The human doesn't fight to win, they move through the facility like ghosts, Marcus leading with a certainty that terrified Zakara more than the explosions echoing through the corridors. He seemed to know exactly where the enemies would be, which routes were compromised, and when to wait in perfect silence as armed figures passed just meters away. "How many?" she whispered as they crouched behind an overturned equipment locker. 47. "In the initial assault wave," Marcus replied without hesitation. 12 more in reserve positions. 3 command staff in the central hub. "How can you possibly know that?" He turned to look at her, and in the emergency lighting's red glow, his face was a map of controlled violence. "Because I would have brought 62. A group of separatist soldiers rounded the corner, their weapons sweeping for targets. Zakara tensed, ready to fight, but Marcus placed one finger on her wrist. The touch was gentle, but it carried absolute authority. "Wait." The soldiers passed their hiding spot, discussing positions in low voices. Once they were gone, Marcus stood and followed them with movements so fluid and silent that Zakara wondered if humans were naturally evolved predators after all. She never heard the kills. One moment the corridor was empty except for Marcus walking calmly forward. The next, 3 bodies lay crumpled against the walls, their weapons neatly stacked beside an emergency supply station. "Take one," he said, gesturing to the weapons. "Check the charge, test the weight, then forget everything your instructors taught you about honorable combat." Zakara's hands shook as she lifted an energy rifle. "I don't understand. Your people fight to prove superiority. Mine fight to go home." Marcus began stripping equipment from their bodies with practiced efficiency. "There's a difference." They reached the facility's central atrium, where massive windows showed the jungle world's alien landscape. Emergency lighting cast everything in bloody shadows, and the sound of battle echoed from multiple levels. Zakara could hear other cadets, young warriors from a dozen species, screaming as they discovered their training simulations had become death traps. "We have to help them," she said. Marcus was studying something on a stolen tactical display. "No." "What do you mean, no?" "They're dying. And if we try to rescue them, will die too. Then everyone dies. He looked up from the display, and his expression was carved from stone. Objective analysis. This facility holds approximately 200 cadets from 17 species. Current survival rate in random encounters with hostile forces is 12%. The numbers hit her like physical blows. You're talking about leaving them to die. I'm talking about mathematics. Marcus shouldered his rifle and began moving toward a maintenance shaft. Those cadets are brave, well-trained, and completely unprepared for actual warfare. They'll fight according to their honor codes, their training protocols, their species traditions. And they'll die nobly. And you won't? Marcus paused at the shaft entrance. Honor is a luxury. Traditions are habits. Training is preparation. He looked back at her one final time. I don't fight to win, Zakara. I fight because someone else decided that my people needed to die, and I disagreed with their assessment. Another explosion shook the facility. Somewhere above them, she could hear the distinctive roar of a Kethver warrior in full battle fury, followed by weapons fire, then silence, one of her own people, dead because they'd fought with honor instead of practicality. What are you? She whispered. Tired, Marcus said, and disappeared into the maintenance shaft. Zakara followed, abandoning everything she'd been taught about warfare, honor, and what it meant to be a warrior. Behind them, the facility burned, and the game claimed more players who'd never realized the stakes had changed in the darkness of the maintenance tunnels. She began to understand why humans were spoken of in whispers across the galaxy. Not because they were the strongest or the fastest or the most advanced, because they were the ones who came home. The price of survival, the facility's command center, was a slaughterhouse. Zakara stood in the doorway, her enhanced vision taking in details she wished she couldn't see. 12 separatist operatives lay dead around the central control station, their bodies arranged with mechanical precision. No wasted movement, no excess violence, just efficient termination of threats. Marcus worked at the main console, his fingers dancing across alien interfaces with impossible familiarity. Emergency. Lighting painted everything in shades of red and gold, making the scene look like something from her species' ancient war poems. Communications restored, he announced without looking up. Orbital support inbound. Extraction in 43 minutes. Zakara tried to speak and found her voice had abandoned her. The human she'd dismissed as primitive had just single-handedly neutralized the command structure of a terrorist cell that had been planning this attack for months. How? She finally managed. I told you. I've been hunting them. Marcus pulled up a holographic display showing the facility's current status. Red dots marked hostile positions throughout the complex. The training exercise was cover. My real mission was to identify and eliminate their leadership. The scope of it hit her like a physical blow. You used us, all of us, as bait. Yes, no justification, no apology. Just acknowledgement. The other cadets, my people, they're all dead because you needed cover for your mission? Marcus turned to face her, and for the first time since the attack began, his expression showed something other than cold calculation, something that might have been regret. 17% survived, he said quietly. Better than the projections. 17%, Zakara repeated, her voice hollow. Of 200 young warriors. 34 individuals who will return to their families. Marcus began gathering equipment from the dead operatives. 34 beings who will live to have children, create art, explore the stars, or sit quietly in gardens, watching the sunset. The mathematics are simple. Zakara's claws extended involuntarily. Every instinct screamed at her to attack, to make him pay for the casual way he discussed the death of her peers. But she'd seen what happened to those who fought Marcus. Web and survival had become more important than honor. Is this what humans are? she asked. Killers who dress murder up as mathematics? Marcus paused in his equipment gathering. We're the species that survived a nuclear war, Zakara. We're the ones who rebuilt civilization from the ashes of our mistakes and kept rebuilding every time we knocked it down again. We're the ones who looked at a universe full of bigger, stronger, faster predators and decided that none of that mattered. The facility shuddered as something large exploded in the lower levels. Your people fight with honor because you can afford to, Marcus continued. Mine learned that honor is meaningless if everyone you care about is dead. So we fight ugly, and we fight smart, and we fight like our species' survival depends on every single engagement. Because it does? Because it did, for long enough that we forgot how to fight any other way. Orbital bombardment lit up the jungle outside the windows as human warships engaged the Separatist fleet. The sound was like thunder rolling across an endless sky. Extraction in 12 minutes, Marcus announced, checking his chronometer. Zakara watched him prepare for evacuation with the same methodical precision he'd shown in combat. No celebration, no relief, no acknowledgement that he'd just prevented a massacre that could have sparked interstellar war. What happens now? She asked. You file your report. You recommend increased security protocols for training facilities. You try to forget what you learned here. Marcus shouldered his pack and moved toward the exit. And you never tell anyone that humans don't. Fight to win. What do I tell them you fight for? Marcus paused at the doorway, silhouetted against the burning jungle beyond. Tomorrow, he said simply, and walked into the smoke. Zakara remained in the command center until the extraction ships arrived, surrounded by the dead and the blinking lights of restored systems. She thought about honor and mathematics and the terrible price of survival. When the rescue teams found her, she was staring out at the jungle where a human had taught her that some games are too important to play. Fair, the war game was over, but the education in what humans truly were had just begun.